Hey everyone, in this video I'm going to be showing you how to create a race game mode in Trilogy. So first step is go ahead and get your Trilogy mod kit loaded from right here. So just open your U project. That should load you into this. And the next thing we're going to want to do is go ahead and create a new user-generated content or another mod. So we'll just call that game mode race video. Yep, so we get our blank folder here. And so the next thing we're going to want to do is copy over the map template first. We're just going to create all of our files at first just to get that over with. So let's just copy. Actually, we're going to just copy that right over. And we'll call that just game mode race. And next we're going to want to create some new game mode core gameplay files. So we'll do it for all of our core gameplay classes. So we'll right click our game mode and create a child of that. Our game state, create a child of that. Player controller, child of that. And player state, child of that. Yep, go ahead and copy all those in, or move them actually into our race video. We're also going to want to make a child of our VR character, because we're going to be modifying the wrist Huds on him for this new game mode. So let's go ahead and make a child and then move him over to the race video. Alright, we're going to create some new blueprints as well. So just go to our right click and blueprint class, and they're just going to be actor blueprints. So let's see. So our first one's just going to be the BP finish line. And we're going to create one called BP Death Pit. And then we're also going to create a bunch of widget blueprints that we're going to be displaying on the screen, just to give some information about the game state. So just go to user interface, widget blueprint. And we're going to do a widget blueprint for the countdown. We're going to make another widget blueprint to display the name of the winner of the race. And we're also going to do a widget blueprint for when there's no winner. We'll save all of those. And then we're also going to have some custom HUD. So we're going to go to our UI HUD. And we're going to copy the HUD widget blueprint into our new mod. Let's see. And in VR, we're also going to be modifying the wrist HUD on the left, VR wrist HUD. So we're going to copy this in as well. Yeah, so let's go in here and let's get the naming complete on all of these. So just changing everything to have race on the end of it. Just like the things that children of some of the classes we subclassed. So do this guy as well. Instead of, oops. Oops. Yeah, I'll have to give it like a different name first, and then remove that. Yeah, never mind. Guess we're stuck with that for now. Man, that's annoying. Oh well. All right, so I think that's all the renaming we have to do. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is open our new map, so game mode race, and we're going to let's see if that helps. Yeah, so in the race we're not going to have any flags, obviously, so we'll delete those. These are just for capture the flag or any other race, or sorry, any other game mode that might have flags in it. We're going to delete the no flag zone or the out of bounds zone. Save that up. We're also going to replace our core gameplay classes for this map to point to the ones we just created in our new mod here. So we'll do it a little bit different this time. So we'll just grab our game mode from here, and then we can just click this arrow, and then and that will just grab that file from here and just place it into here. So it's just a way to connect this content browser to this, and so that way we're just making sure that because I have I've already created all these before, so I just want to make sure that we're pointing. They're all named the same, so I just want to make sure that we're pointing into this mod folder. So we'll say none for our default pawn, because we're going to be spawning that ourselves later, or at least the game will spawn that for you. Player controller, our game state, our player state, and then in this case, we're going to be using the spectator class in this race mode. So like when you fall off and you essentially fall into what I'm calling the death pit, you actually become a spectator. So for that, we have to actually use our custom spectator spawn class. So yeah, if you ever want to have spectation ability in your game mode, always remember to change it to this guy right here. So yeah, so that should be it with setting these up. We'll just go back and double check. So yeah, everything's pointing to race. So in our in the correct folder. Yep, and that's pointing back out to this to the modkit class, or sorry, to the modkit folder. So yeah, so we should be good to go on that. So for the race mode, we're just gonna have we're not gonna have any teams, so we're gonna delete all of these yellow spawn points, because there's just gonna be basically one team. And we can kill this folder. And then what we're going to do is all the orange team, we're just going to go here to details, and we're going to just choose none for those, because there's just going to be literally no team. well. Not really necessary, but it's just good practice to keep things named well. Okay. So we'll save that. So now we just have 5 none spawn points. Yeah, and I think that's all we have to do for the map. So the next thing we're going to do is go into our player state. And we're going to disable enabling input on spawn for right now, just by default. So we'll just turn that off. And the reason for that is when you first enter the race, or when the race ends and it restarts, we don't want you to, we're gonna have a countdown, and we don't want people to be able to like move around or look around, right? Because we want the race to be fair, so that when the countdown hits 0, boom, now everybody can move and race. So that's kind of the point of this. This just makes sure that usually when you spawn in, you would want the input to, to be enabled right away. So this actually delays that into our control, right? So we'll save that. And that's all we need to do in this player state. So the next thing we'll do is load our the character that we overrode, or just our VR character that we overrode, because we're going to be making some HUD modifications. So we want to make sure we're able to update its wrist HUD. So it's just going to affect, the changes we're going to make are just going to affect the left wrist HUD. So we're just going to go to the character we made that we're overriding, and we're just going to point him to the new wrist HUD that we're going to make here. So actually what we'll do is we'll go back out. We already created the file here for it right here. So we'll just grab that, and we'll just arrow it in to make sure it's coming from the right place. So yep, it's the race video folder. So we'll save that. And so yeah, so now our character will be pointing, we'll use the wrist HUD that's in our mod rather than the one from the main game. So and that's all we need to do there. Yeah, so now we get into the more complicated stuff. We're going to actually start working on the game mode itself. So we're going to load our new game mode race folder. I'm sorry, game mode race file. Go to our event graph, and we're going to get started on this. Okay, so I'm just going to just delete the event tick for now. We're not going to use that. And the first thing I'm going to do is just right click the begin play, and we're going to add a call to our parent function. So this is important so that it still runs all the code from the main game, even when we're running this new mod, because this actually handles a bunch of stuff like choosing the correct non-VR or VR pawn, and a bunch of other stuff. It handles like spawning in the players and stuff like that. So we want to definitely keep that. Then we're gonna make a sequence off of it, and then the what we're gonna do is we're gonna be using our game state in this file. So we're gonna want to get that right now, and we're gonna want to just cast that to I think this is hopefully, let me see, I'm hoping this is pointing to the right one right now. I think it's always the top one, but we'll see. Like I think I guess we could rename this. Like, yeah, well, Seems like it's the second one. Yeah, so probably what I'll do is I'm gonna rename all these ones with race just to race video so that I can tell the difference from the ones I already made. So that should be okay for now. All right, so we're going to cast this to the new game state class that's in our mod kit here. So just connect that. So the reason we're doing this, we're going to be using game state to allow the server to broadcast to all the clients like user interface information. So it's going to show, for example, the countdown. It's going to show the winner. It's going to show if there's no winner. And so we need to actually do that through game state, because game state's it's one of the only classes that both the server and client share together. So it's the best way for the server to multicast out to all the clients is to add those multicasts into game state. So that's why we need it. So yeah, so then we'll right click and we'll promote this to a variable so we can easily use this elsewhere in our code. And we'll get our game, we'll call it game state reference. Okay. Let's just call it video for now. It's weird, I guess it thinks it's pulling, it sees the other one. I don't know how that's possible, but oh, I know what it is actually. Yeah, exactly. So we'll actually call this game state, race reference. It's because there's already, we already have a game state reference in the master class of game mode. So yeah, it was finding that already and just letting us know that we can't have two variables of the same name, not in the subclass at least. It won't allow the subclass to overwrite the parent class. So yeah, so we'll call it game state race reference, and that's really what it is. It's our game state race reference. So all right. So the whole the whole main purpose of the game mode right now, at least this file, is going to be just to like handle the countdown. So we're going to use some kind of built-in events that come with Unreal. And so what's going to happen is we want to start the countdown when the match starts, basically. The match will start basically every time the map, resets and players start to come in. So to do that, we're going to use the onSet match state event. So this comes with Unreal. So Unreal actually tracks the game state itself automatically. So we can use this to see exactly what states it's entering into and then like act upon those states. And so we're interested in when the actual match starts so that we can begin the countdown. So we'll grab that on set match state event, and then we'll add a call to the parent function just in case we're using this in the main game. We still want to grab that functionality, so it's always good practice to do that. And then this is a little bit of an odd, usually this would be like an enumeration or an enum, but for some reason it's a name. So you'll see what we have to do is in order to act upon the different states, we have to drag off of it, and we're going to create a switch. And since this is a switch that's like off of like a name or a string, essentially, like we're gonna have to add the states manually, and so you can get those out of the Unreal Engine documentation, but I already looked it up, so I'll just add them with you guys here. So I think there's like 5 states we're gonna track. We're only gonna use one, but I think it's cool just to have all of them just so you guys know and have them for later in case you want to use them. So yeah, so let's start entering them. So there's I'm gonna copy and paste them in just so I make sure I get them right. So one's going to be entering map, and this is actually in order to the way the states get hit. So the first state it'll run is entering map. The second state is waiting to start. The third state it'll hit is in progress. The fourth state is waiting post-match. And the fifth state is leaving map. So yeah, so like anytime it enters one of these states, like this pin will run. And so we're interested in this in progress state. So that's like the state where basically the match, because these are match states, it's where the match like just begins, which is basically like where, what I found it to be is like where the first player enters the game that this will run. So this will only run once, and it's only that one time, that moment that everything enters. So the first thing we're going to want to do, we'll go ahead and create a new, or actually let's categorize this into references. So we're going to create a new variable. We're going to call it wait time. And we're going to set that to just a float. And we're going to put it under wait. Let's see. Yeah, we'll give it a default. We'll just set it to 3 seconds. And so what we're going to want to do is hold control and drag this out, or you can just drag it out and do a get. It's the same thing. So we're going to get that wait time of 3 seconds. And so the first thing we're going to do when the match first starts is we're actually going to add a delay. So this isn't like the, well, it's not a bad way to do it. I like just simplicity. And so what I'm doing here is I could like literally do a bunch of like calculations, and it gets a little complicated though, where you could like wait for like, it expects a certain amount of players to be joining and it waits for like all of them to get in, but it just adds a lot of extra code, and I don't know, like there's not too much benefit from it. So what I'm doing is it's probably like not considered like best practice, but it's not a race condition, so it's kind of okay to just use a delay here. And we're just, all this is just we're just waiting for stragglers to join basically. So like, once the, like for example, if the race is won and then we're entering into the new map, it's going to take a few seconds for like everybody to travel, right, due to like internet connection speeds and stuff, and kind of get into the new map. So that's all this does, is just kind of like once the match starts, we're just going to wait a few extra seconds. I found 3 is okay. You could set it to like 5 or whatever you want, and it'll just lower the probability that we're going to start earning this other countdown code without everybody already in the map. So yeah, so we'll put a little comment here to say like wait for any I call them stragglers to join. Yeah, and so at that point we're going to run a sequence of some other tasks. And so yeah, at this point what we're going to do is we're going to basically start a little countdown timer on everybody's computers. So we're going to do that through the game state reference. So right now we're in game mode, so this is only running on the server. So now the server wants to go out to all these clients and say, hey, go ahead and start a little countdown timer on your screen. So we're going to like do that. We're going to create the timer and broadcast that out. So to do that though, we don't have the multicast. We have to actually go create that in our game state right now. So because that's not part of the main game. This is all just part of the race game mode. So we'll go back out. And we'll go to our game state and we'll start working in there. So we're not going to need either of these. And what we're going to do is we're going to right click and create a custom event, because this is going to be RPC'd, a multicast RPC, remote procedure call, from the server to all the clients to start their to at least pull up their timers, their countdown timers. So we're going to always start it with a prefix of multicast, since that's what it's going to be. and we're going to call it Countdown Timer. Then what we're going to do is once we have to click it to actually make it multicast, we're going to do multicast, and we're going to make it reliable because we just want to make sure it's only going to get run once, and we just want to be 100% sure that all the other clients get it. So even if it fails, it will always try to resend this RPC until it actually gets an acknowledge or an ACK back. So that's what reliable does. You never want to do like a multicast reliable like in like a tick, you know, like where it's like every tick it's doing that. That's like the worst. It's like even Epic, they don't allow it internally. So like on Fortnite and stuff. So yeah. So but this is just going to get run once. And so we're going to go ahead and create an input for that because we want to make the countdown time like custom. So it could be 10 seconds, 5 seconds, whatever you want. So we're going to try to make this versatile. So we're going to make a just going to be an integer, just a whole time that you can count down, and we're just going to call it time. And then what we're going to do is this is going to get run on the server and all clients, but mainly it's going to get run on the clients is the point of it. So when it gets run, we're going to want to actually create a widget, and we're going to want to create we're going to want to use the widget blueprint countdown widget that we created already. So actually, I'll go grab that from out here. So we'll make sure we're in the race video folder, and we'll choose our countdown widget, and then we'll use this arrow and just plug it in. So that's how we know it's from the same mod folder. And then what we're going to want to do is we're not totally done with this yet. We need to actually do the countdown widget next, so we can plug this into it. But I'm kind of getting the basics set up already. We're going to want, once we create that widget on the screen, we're going to want to actually add it to the viewport. So what I've done is I've actually created this my add to viewport. Usually in Unreal, you just use this add to viewport. But the problem, it's not even in here right now, but like I think if I did it off of this, it would show that. So like add to viewport, right? So most games would use this, but we're using my add to viewport because this is a special function I created for you guys that actually gives us both non-VR and VR support. You know, we don't want to forget about the VR users, right? So this will make this game mode work for both non-VR and VR, which is great. You know, we always want to be supportive of the VR user since this game does support VR. And yeah, so I made this really nice helper function to do that. So it's just my add to viewport. All right, so let's go. We'll hit this, and we need to actually start working on the countdown widget. So the countdown widget, we're just going to grab this text. It's just going to be some text. We're just going to grab that into the canvas panel. We're going to highlight it, and we're going to choose the center of the screen because we want it to be in the center of the screen as our anchor. Then we're going to zero out this and zero out the position. We're going to size it to the content, which is just the size of this, and we're going to tell it to be aligned in the middle horizontally and vertically. We're also going to choose the trilogy font of prototype and set it to make something just nice and big, like 62 font size. Yeah, we'll save that. And then we'll just give it like a default text, just so we kind of get an idea of what it's going to be, because it's just going to be a numerical value in the middle of the screen, and that's going to count down. So the next thing we're going to do is go into our graph of that widget blueprint for the countdown. And we're going to want to, first off, just create a time variable and set it to an integer. And we're going to want to expose that. And we're also going to, well, we'll do that in a second. But at least we'll create the time for now. And then we're going to expose it actually both on instance editable and expose on spawn. And so what that will allow us to do is pass in a custom time, and so that this widget blueprint is like kind of reusable, and we can change the time like really easily for how much it counts down. So we'll get rid of reconstruct, and the tick, we're just going to use this event construct. And so event constructor says, okay, so like once we add this to the viewport, right, which we're kind of doing right here, and if I actually, well, I'll do that in a second, but basically once we add it, once we create it and then add it to the viewport, it's going to run this construction, and so it's going to run this event, and so that's the point at which we want to actually start counting this down, like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So the minute we show it, we're going to immediately want to start doing the countdown. So we're going to drag off of this, and we're going to create an event. Sorry, a timer by event. And what we're going to do is we're going to need to destroy this timer later when the countdown's done. So we're just going to right click and promote to variable. And then we're going to call this, this is our decrement timer, because we're decrementing the time with this timer. And so what we're going to do is we're going to say, okay, every 1 second we want to loop. So we want to do this continually. Every second we want to run this event. So we're going to make a custom event, and we're going to call it decrement time. So every second it's going to decrement whatever we give it, you know, until we destroy the timer. So what we're going to do is we're going to want to run this, or we're going to want to create a actually what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to grab the current time. So this is going to be like dual purpose. It's going to be the amount of time we want to start with, and it's going to be the time we display and choose and use to choose when this timer gets destroyed. So we'll just grab that variable, and we're going to do a check on it. We're going to be like, all right, is this time still greater than 0, right? So we haven't completed the countdown yet. So we're going to drag a branch off of that. And so every second it's going to run this, it's going to check to see if this time is still greater than 0. So if it is greater than 0, then we're going to want to decrement it. So decrement int. So I just type minus minus. And so it's going to go, let's say it started at 5. In 1 second after this widget gets created, because it's at 5, so it's greater than 0. So it's going to actually go to 4 now, right? And then the next time it runs, it's going to go to 3 because it's still greater. 4 is greater than 0, and it's going to keep doing that. So this is going to basically cause this time to go from 5 to 4 to 3 to 2 to 1. And then, of course, once it hits 0, it's no longer greater than 0. It's equal to 0. So it's going to run this. So we're going to go off the false and be like, all right, let's do a bit of a sequence. We'll throw a reroute node in. Just double click. And so if it basically if it gets to 0, it's going to run this. And what we're going to do is, well, we want the timer to stop, right? So the first thing we need to do is grab the decrement timer reference that we created up here when we first started the timer, and we're going to run this clear and invalidate timer, and that's basically what stops the timer. And the other thing we're going to want to do when it completes is we're going to want to remove from viewport. So this is another custom function I created for you guys that, again, is VR friendly. So it goes in conjunction with this add to viewport. So we're going to want to essentially remove the timer off the screen. So that will remove it off of the screen. And so the last thing we need to do, like we need to actually see the current time, right, on the screen. And so what we're going to do is we're going to click this little text widget right here that we created earlier, and we're going to bind its value to our time. And now Unreal will automatically, whenever this changes, and we're decrementing it, so we're going from 5 to 4 to 3 to 1. It's actually going to show that value as this text. So And that's all we need to do. That's the entire countdown widget. So pretty cool. It's fully encapsulated, so it handles itself. I like to program things with encapsulation so that we don't get like spaghetti code, right? It's not like pointing all out over the place. It's very self-contained into like how it works. All we're doing is we're just going to pass in and tell it how much time so to use for this value. It doesn't have to be 5. It can be anything we pass into it. Why? Because we created this time variable, and we've exposed it here and exposed on spawn, and we made it instance editable and exposed on spawn. So let's go see what that looks like. So we're supposed to use it back out here. So we're going to compile this, and notice how this now it's exposing that time here. So we're going to want to take the time in that we passed into this multicast, and we're going to want to from the server, it's passing it down to the clients, this amount of time that we've set back here on game mode. We haven't even called it yet, but we're about to. We haven't done that part yet. And then it's going to feed that into the countdown widget. It's going to create the countdown widget, right? And then it's going to start the countdown, and it's going to display it onto the screen. And then when the countdown's over, it's going to stop the timer. It's going to stop decrementing it, and it's going to remove it off the screen. All right, so that's in game state. Again, we put it there so we can call this multicast from the server and have it. Since this is game state's on the clients, it will this will allow the server to communicate down to the clients. So now we're back to this point. And what we're going to want to do now is our game state race, which is where we created this multicast. We can now actually call the multicast from the server. So we can say, okay, multicast, and then what we're going to want to do is we can right click here and do promote to variable, and we'll call this and you don't have to do this, I just do it because it's nice to have things just named, you know. I mean, because we could actually just specify the time here, but then I don't know, like I find it it's harder later, you know. It adds like what would be called like technical debt later, right? It's not obvious. It's nice when you could just go here and see the stuff you can set. Like I can set my wait time, I can set my countdown time. So we'll call it countdown time. Compile it. I always like to categorize everything. And then we'll actually set the time. So we'll connect this. And we'll set the countdown time to 5. And we could make that whatever we want. And then whatever we set it to, it will automatically count down that amount of time. So this just handles the visual aspect, the visual element of the countdown timer on the clients, right? But the next thing we need to do is the server actually needs to do its own countdown, right? So that we can actually begin the race. And so we'll do that right here. So, whoops. So on the server side, we're going to create another timer by event, because the other one was inside of the just the widget that we're showing on the screen. But this is like the actual like kind of gameplay code we're going to write now. And so what we're going to do is we're not going to do the same thing like where we're looping every second. We're just going to grab the countdown time, and we're going to drag that into this time here. So it's just going to, basically this is just going to run once. It's going to count down from 5 to 4 to 3 to 2 to 1, just one time. It's going to wait 5 seconds basically before calling this event. We're going to create a custom event, and we're going to say, okay, this is countdown complete. So a little bit different. We're not looping it. We're just going to wait 5 seconds and then run this. And it doesn't have to be 5. It'll just be whatever variables that we set here. So that's why it's actually nice to have the variable, because we're actually reusing it now. So we can just set it one place, and then it automatically gets used on the interface and on the and on the server. And so when this countdown is complete, we want to do a couple things on the server. So the first thing we want to do is you'll see that we're going to have it where there's no input enabled. And so what we want to do is when the countdown's complete, we want to actually enable the input on the players, like essentially allow them to move and look around, right? And so we're going to control that from the server. And so what we're going to do is we're going to we're gonna run a get player controllers, and so this is just a variable that I've created in the main game that tracks all the players that have joined the game. And so what we're going to do is just say, okay, for every player that's in the game, so we're going to do a for each. And what we're going to do is we're going to create a function, because we're going to be using it here and one other place. So we're going to create a new function. We're going to call it enable all input. And we're going to give it an input of BP player controller base. And we're going to call that player controller. So basically, like, all the enabling and disabling of input is generally going to happen either on the player controller or on its player state. So yeah, so we're going to make a sequence off of this. So we have to do a couple things. So we have to drag off of this, and we're going to have we're going to call my disable input. And we're going to set that to false. See how it says disable, so we're going to say do not disable, or basically it's just the opposite. We're enabling the input by setting this to false. So at that point, the player will be able to move around, essentially. And then what we're going to also want to do is, for the future, we're going to want to, off of the player controller, we're going to want to get the player state reference here, because there's another variable we want to set. And so that's going to be the one that we kind of turned off by default, which is we're going to want to set the enable input on spawn to true. And the reason for that is if the player were to respawn while the race is ongoing, this would make it so that when they respawn, like if they were just killed, that they would have input enabled immediately. See, we only want to disable that input on spawn like only at the beginning of the race, right? So that's why when we run this, it handles both. It enables the input, and it also makes sure that when they respawn, they have input enabled immediately as well. So there's our function. And so what we're going to do is we're going to call that, so for every player controller, and so this is a bunch of BP player controller bases, and that's what we're getting for each element in there. We're going to enable all input. And so later we'll have to figure out, like, I don't remember exactly like where I'm calling this right now, but I think this actually might be disabled in game. I'm not like really sure. I'll have to look into that in a second, so we'll find out. But I know that I'm supposed to do that here, so at least. Yeah, so at this point, once the countdown completes on the server, the server is going to go to all of the player controllers and tell them to enable their inputs. And the other thing we're going to do is we need to track. I'm kind of tracking, like I created my own variable called like on the game state. Well, actually, let's see. I think we still need to create that variable. Yeah, so let's go to our game state reference here, or our game state race video, and we're going to make a new variable, and we're going to call it match fully started. Question mark. And we're going to put it under the match category. And so the reason is we already have this this in progress, right? So that kind of means we already know that the match is fully started. However, because of this wait time, I wanted to track, and you'll see why later when other players come in. They need to know if the match is fully started, and you'll see why, because we need to enable their inputs, right? Like they're not really part of the countdown because the match has already started. So yeah, I'm tracking kind of, because of this, I've made my own variable to track like when does it actually start. So like, you know, this has to run and this countdown has to complete, right? And then the match is fully started. So now we'll set match is fully started, and we'll set that to true. So by default, it's going to be false, and we haven't really used it yet, but we're going to set that to true, but we're about to use it right now. And so there you go. So now this countdown will start. When the countdown completes, we will enable input on all the players that are currently in the game so they can start moving and racing, right? And then we'll also make sure that any players coming in know that the match is fully started so that they can have input enabled immediately. All right, so what we want to do is that right now. So we want to grab this handle starting new player. So again, this is a built-in Unreal function, and just anytime a player enters the game, this is going to run. So we want to right-click and make sure that we call the parent function of this in the main game, because there's functionality that's reliant on that. And so then what we're going to want to do is grab our game state reference variable, and we're going to actually want to then now get the match fully started variable, right? Because we want, when a player comes in, we want to check if the match is fully started or not, so we can enable their input or not. So we'll connect that. And so what we need to do is, this is just, since this is a built-in Unreal function, it's just going to give us the player controller object. So we need to actually cast that to our player controller base. And I'm going to right-click and make it a peer cast, so we don't have to put it into the execution line. And the reason for that is because we're going to call our special function on this. Or at least our enable all input function right here. We're going to enable all input. It requires a BP player controller base. So we're just going to plug that in, and then we're going to make that true. Another reroute node. And there you go. So now any new player that comes in, if the match is fully started, they're going to automatically have all of their input enabled, so they can start trying to race in that race, even though they'd be way far behind, but at least it handles the situation. So let's see really quick about this enable all input. So I think what it is like, I think by default, this all input is disabled, I think. anyways, so I think we're not having to do anything about that. Yeah, and so we're just, since it's already disabled, we're just re-enabling it here. So we don't actually have to disable it ourselves. Hopefully, we'll see. I guess we'll check that later, and if we have a problem, we'll come back and fix it. All right. So I think we're actually done with our game mode file here. And so the next thing we're going to want to create is our, or at least work on, is the finish line. So we'll open that file and go to our event graph. Delete these. We'll start with our begin play. So make a sequence off of it. Then what we're going to want to do is we're only going to want to operate on the server. So we'll use a switch has authority. And the reason is because the server, it would throw errors. Like the server is the only, it's the only thing that has game mode on it. So we want to make sure we're just on the server. We're going to get our game mode. We're going to cast to our game mode base, so we can access our functions and variables off of that. So connect the authority into that. And then we're going to want to right click and promote to variable. Call it our game mode reference. And put it on our references category. And so the reason we're doing this is because we're going to be using this, I think, to actually, once they pass the finish line, this will actually change. We're going to be using the game mode to change the level. So that's what we're going to use that for in a bit. We're also going to stay on the server. And we're going to want to get a reference to our game state as well, because we're going to want to broadcast who the winner is through the game state and get that UI to pop up, just like we did with the countdown. So get game state. And we're going to cast to game state race in this case, because that's where that function lives, or the multicast that we're going to be creating, the custom multicast for this game mode. And then we're going to want to right click and promote that to a variable as well. Oops. Yeah, put that into references and we'll call it game state reference. All right. So what we're going to want to do is the finish line is just going to be, we're just trying to detect collision on it. So all we need to do that is a collision box, so we can just, it's going to be invisible, and then of course you can place it in between any kind of geometry you want. So we'll just type box and we'll get a box collision. So there you go. And then we'll give it like a pretty good size, kind of make it like more like a goal line shape. So we'll make it the box extent like 1500 centimeters, like that. And we'll just make it 5 thick, so it's kind of thin, and we'll make it 250 centimeters in height. So the next thing we're going to want to do is, obviously we're going to be colliding with this, so we really need to pay attention to our collision settings on it. So I'll click it, go to collisions, we'll make it a custom collision, and we're going to choose query only, because we don't want it to actually block stuff. We want things to be able to just pass through it, and we just want to make sure we can detect what passes through it. So we'll make it a query only. We'll make it world static, because it's not moving, and we'll tell it to ignore everything except for pawns, which are the players. So basically this thing's only going to detect when players like pass through it. And so then what we're going to do is we're going to come down here on it, and we're going to say, okay, we want to do something when something overlaps it, right? Which in this case is just going to be pawn. So anytime a pawn overlaps it, we're going to want to do something. So what we're going to do is, so now we have this on overlap event when things overlap this box. And so we only want, the first thing we're going to want to do is we only want the server, we want it to be server authoritative. So only the server is going to detect collisions with this, and then it's going to tell the clients like what to do. And so what we want to do is this other actor that comes in, we want to first check if it's actually, because it could be, the pawns could be enemies or bots as well. So we just want to detect player character. So a cool way to do that is to just grab the actor object, say get class. So we get the class of it, and then we can actually test it. We can say class is child of BP character base. And so what that's doing is it's just making sure that whatever this thing is that hit it, we want to make sure that it's actually like a player character, right? And so you could do that with tags, but I like this method better because then you don't have to deal with tags. And yeah, it just makes it a little bit easier. Just a clever way to kind of filter out like who we're going to be operating on. So we have to drag off of this and do a branch and connect the authority to it. So yeah, so that's going to be like, okay, so whatever hits this, make sure we're on the server, and then make sure it's, so long as it's a player character, like that, then we'll go ahead and do something. So the other thing I like to do off this is it can register multiple times, this collision, but we only want it to do something once, right? When a player runs through the finish line, we only want it to, we want it to end the game basically just one time. And we don't want to allow like other players, right? Like in case like two players like run through like very close, we don't want it to like end the game twice. So it's only just going to be the first player, and they're going to get the credit for it. So yeah, so what we're going to do is we already know this it's already passed through this filter, so we're just going to grab this guy, and we already know it's going to be a character base because that's literally what we checked for. So we can cast to that like this. And then we're going to promote it to a variable, and we're going to call this the this is going to be the winning character. We'll put that under winner, the winner category. So then what we're going to want to do is this winning character. Sorry, we need to add a sequence off of this so we can do multiple things. There we go. So then what we're going to want to do is for this winning character, it's a BP character base. We're going to want to get the player state off of it. The reason is because the player state has the all the information about the player. So the thing we want to get is the name of the player. So we can get the character, get its player state. We can get the player name. This is actually like a built-in function, and this is going to be your like Steam name basically. And then what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to use an append string here because we want to say this player space wins, because that's what we're going to be displaying on the screen. So we're going to create a string using the player name. So it's going to be the player name wins. And then what we're going to want to do is we want to multicast this kind of like the countdown timer to all the clients. So we have to go into we have to go back into our game state, and we're going to be creating a new multicast for that. So let's create a new custom event. And we're going to call it multicast winner. And we'll make it a multicast type and make it reliable. And we're going to be creating a new widget. And we're going to be adding that to Viewport. So my add to Viewport, so it supports VR. And we're going to be using, that's weird, what did it give me? An error. Oh yeah, because we haven't connected, we haven't selected a class yet. So yeah, we're going to be choosing this winner blueprint, widget blueprint here. So we're going to click that. So we go back to game state, and we're going to pass that in as our class, and it will compile now. Yeah, so let's get that widget set up. So let's go back out. Let's grab our widget blueprint for the winner. Save everything. Yeah, so this the winner is just going to it's just going to be some text. We're going to anchor it to the middle of the screen, 0 its position on there, center it up, size to content, choose our font, make it big. There we go. And then we're going to give it like a little demo text. We're going to say it's going to be something like XXXX wins, right? So obviously we're going to be replacing this. So we'll go into the graph for that. And we'll create a new variable. We'll call it the winner text. And that's what we're going to be passing in that we were just creating. So we're going to make it a text type. And yeah, we don't need any of these, so we just delete them. And we're going to make this instance editable and exposing it on spawn. So when we create the widget blueprint, we can actually pass that text in. So again, that text can be custom. So whoever wins, it's going to change that text to like their name. So that's why we want it to be custom, because we don't know who's going to win yet. So, but then of course we have to go back here, and then what we have to do is same thing. We have to bind to that, so that this actual interface, whatever we pass in to this, gets displayed onto the screen. So basically, who won the match? Yep. So let's go back to our finish line here. And we're going to want to, this is why remember we made that game state reference back up here, so that we could call that multicast. So we just created the multicast. We'll multicast the winner, right? Which is going to call this multicast right here. And it's going to, the server is going to, you know, let all the clients know who won, basically. And yeah, so we also need to pass, we need to make a new parameter text, and we're going to call it the winner text, because we need to pass that down to the clients from the server. So we'll go here, and that will, now we can see it here, it got exposed. So we will just drag that in, and it will automatically create the conversion from string to text for us. So we'll connect that, give it a reroute node, and create a new pin. Yeah, so now someone passed through the finish line. We made sure it's a player. We've set that player. We're just storing it, so it's easy. And then we're grabbing the player name, and we're casting it down to the clients. And the clients will then, through game state, the clients will then create a widget for it. Oh, and we got to pass the text in, or that wouldn't have worked. There we go. So the clients now get the text from the server. They create their widget. The widget here, it updates this text thing, and then this text variable, and then that automatically, since this is bound to it, it will update that on their screen. It will show that on their screen. And of course, it will all work in VR, since we're using this add to Viewport. So my add to Viewport. There we go. And there's still another thing we need to do, right? So like what we need to do, basically the game, the race is over, right? Like someone actually won the game, and we just let everybody know. But of course, we're on the server here, right? And so that's why we created this this game mode reference, because obviously now that the game's over and everybody knows who won, we're going to grab the game mode, and we're going to get, there's a variable called the level change delay on it. And what we're going to do is also from the game mode, we're going to change levels. So that's just a function that is built into it. So and of course, we're going to, for the amount of time that we set on our game mode, and in this case, we're just using the base game mode, so we're just using like the base time, which is like 5 seconds. After 5 seconds, we're going to plug that in. We're going to change levels, so we set our delay there. And yep, and that's how a finish line works. And then what we'll do is we'll actually take this finish line now. Yeah, and one other thing I like to do, just in the case of this, is so it makes it easier to put down, is since I made it 250 high, I'll shift it up 250 as well, so it puts the scene root at the bottom. And so what that does is, what we'll do is we'll take this finish line and we'll drag it into our level here. Let's rotate it 90 degrees. And we'll just put it kind of somewhere in the middle of the level, so it's easy to test. And of course, this can be put anywhere in your level. So center it up. And yeah, and so the reason I put it on the bottom is that if it's up high, we can just let's see, we can just use our end. Let me see where that is. Yeah, so you can just hit end on your keyboard, and that will like snap it to the bottom, and it will use that scene root to snap it. So it just made it easy to like get it onto the ground. Yep, and that's it. We save it, so that's in our map now. We have a finish line in our map, and it's like fully functional. It should handle finishing players and letting everybody know who won. So the next thing we're going to make is we're going to make what's called the death pit. And so that's going to be below our map. So anybody that falls off the map will fall into the death pit and enter spectator mode until the race is over. So just kind of a cool feature. You know, doesn't have to be used, but it's just something I wanted to add so you guys could see how to use it in your games, how you can switch into and out of spectator mode. So yeah, so let's move. Let's open our death pit blueprint. We'll go ahead and start off by creating. It's going to be another box collision similar to our finish line. But it's going to be a much larger one, so it's going to be 10,000 by 10,000, yeah, and just by 32. So, and then of course, very similar to the finish line, we you know, it's going to be detecting stuff, so we want to just go to custom, make it query only, make it a world static. Ignore everything except for detect overlaps with pawns. So just like the finish line. And yeah, that's it for that. We'll go to our event graph. And we'll start with, just delete these, we'll start with our begin play. Pull a sequence off of it. And we'll make sure we're on the server, so just grab a switch as authority. And we're going to be getting our game mode. And we're going to be casting that to our game mode race. Creating the variable again. Calling that our game mode reference. That's all we need. We're not going to be announcing, right, that like people have entered the death pit, so we don't need like our game state reference. We're just going to be doing some other stuff. So yeah, so actually we want to go back. We want to click our box, and we also want to detect overlaps with it. So we'll get an event for that. Same thing, we want to just detect these on the server. So add a switch as authority. And same thing, like we just want to get the class of what we detected of the pawn, and we want to make sure that it's a child of a BP character base. Check one thing here. Yeah, make this look a little nicer. So if it is, we're going to run a sequence of tasks or events. Well, not really events, but just a sequence of code. And so I'm going to grab this, and we already know it's going to be a character base because we checked for that here. So we can just immediately cast to it. Do some organization. And then we're going to right-click, make this actor variable, and we're just going to call this I call it the victim character that fell into this pit. Put it into the victim category. Then what we're going to do is, off the character, we're going to get its controller reference, because on the controller is where we handle the spectating, how we can start and stop spectating. So in this case, we're going to do, let's say, server start spectating. And there's also a stop spectating, but we're not going to use that. The players will automatically stop spectating. They basically, when the server, when the match ends, when the race ends, the whole map's going to restart. So they're going to stop spectating at that point. But there is, as you see, if you did want to have your own functionality, you can also stop spectating, and it will allow players to, go in and out. Like, so they could start and then they could also stop, which would like basically essentially respawns them and gives them control of their character again. So, but in this case, we're going to say, okay, any character that hits this basically starts spectating. And that's off their controller. It's a function on their controller. And so then there's kind of like an odd side case. So like, what happens if all the players in the level fall off into the death pit, right? Well, basically the game could never end unless we did a little bit of extra functionality. So what we're going to do is we're going to use this game mode reference we created, and we're going to say, okay, every time someone falls into the pit, we're going to get the number of spectators that are, since they've already started spectating, now we'll have the total number of spectators updated, and we'll also get what's called get num players, and we're going to compare them. We're going to be like, all right, if the number of spectators is greater than or equal to, although it should never really be greater than, but it's good to handle that case just in case. So basically, if all of the players in the level are spectating, well, let's do something. So we'll do a couple things. Well, the first thing we're going to want to do is actually, that's funny, I'm actually going to do it this way. So I'm just going to pull off the game mode reference. And we're going to actually, so we do actually want to access game state, but we'll do it through this game state race reference. So I guess we could have like created a new reference up here, but I decided to do it this way in my example for some reason. Yeah, and so what we can do is we need to let everybody know that there's no winner, right? That nobody won, everybody fell into the death pit, and we're going to restart. So we need to create our final multicast function in our game state. So it says executes on all. And we're going to multicast. So we're going to create a custom event, and we're going to multicast that there was no winner. So we want to set that to multicast, reliable. And what are we going to do? We're going to, just again, we're going to create another widget. So this is going to run on the clients. It's going to create a widget on the client. And we're going to want to grab this no winner widget that we already made a file for. And plug it right in here. And then all we're going to do is literally just my add to viewport. So it actually adds it to the screen in both VR and non-VR. And that's it. So let's actually go work on this widget. It's actually the easiest one. We just, all it is just some text. So we just grab this text. Same thing. Anchor it to the center. Zero it up. Size to content. Align it. Select the font. Type. Select the size. And just say no winner. Just so everybody knows that there was no winner. And that's it. We don't have to create any variables or anything like that. We're not going to be, you know, this isn't going to be changing or anything like that. So yeah, we can just leave it just like that. Yep. So we have our multicast now. So let's go back to the death pit. And so what do we want to do? We want to multicast, right? That there was no winner. And we know this is, you know, we know this is running on the server, so the server is going to multicast. That's pretty much, I mean, that's the only really way you can multicast is off the server. So yeah. So this just keeps it clean. Yep. So we're just going to multicast no winner, and then that's going to, you know, bring that up on the client screen. So, and then of course what we're going to do is when there's no winner, this is the whole point of this, is we want to, you know, we want to get our game mode again, and we want to get the level time, the level change delay. And so it's the same thing. We just want to then off the game mode as well. We want to change levels, and we want to plug this in. So it'll wait 5 seconds, and then it will change levels. So if everybody falls off, if everybody in the level, in the map, becomes a spectator all of a sudden, then we're not just stuck without a potential for the game to be, you know, because nobody can pass through the finish line, so it would never end. So this allows it to actually handle itself. So the death pit, again, it's just encapsulated. It's got all the functionality for the death pit, including the side case, like all within the death pit, right? So of course we need to now we need to add the death pit to our level. So let's go ahead and just drag that blueprint in, and there it is. So we'll just kind of like put it at 0, 0, 0, and then we'll just drop it. Let's see. Oh, just whatever. We'll drop it maybe like, I don't know, 2500 or minus 2500 in the Z. Might not be really enough, but maybe a little bit more. so we'll test that later. We'll make sure that when we fall off, we actually run through that, and then it puts us into spectator mode, and then if everybody falls off, it should restart. Yep. So we're going to kind of get started wrapping up here. So we're going to open our player controller, and we're going to set that to the new HUD class, this HUD race video that we created. And you'll see why in a second here. So that's just literally just replacing the HUD so that we can use a custom one that we created in here. So we'll open that, and then like all we're gonna do, so here's our custom HUD. We're just gonna, we don't need the flags, right? So this is all like the flag information. So that's just this flag score. We're just gonna delete that widget, and there we go. That's like our custom HUD. It's just missing the flag information because we don't need it. Yep, and then the last thing we need to do is we created this. This is the wrist widget that's for VR. That has the flag info in it too, so we don't need that. So we're going to delete it off that wrist widget, and we already connected this earlier, so to our character. So yeah, so that will give us a custom wrist widget for this game mode. And that's it. Like now we just have to build it and test it and see if it works. So let's try it out. So we'll go to package UGC. We'll package our game mode race video, and we'll put it onto our desktop. Okay. That completed. Yep, so here it is here. So the first thing we'll do is we're going to upload that to our workshop so we can actually do like a full live test on this. So I'm going to load my version of the game here. We're going to upload the mod. We're actually going to update, so we're going to choose my existing kind of my mod test zone. Whoops. Sorry, one sec. There we go. And we're gonna, that's the mod folder and the avatar, and we're just gonna give it a little note. And we're going to put it across all tags, and we're going to hit update. It's uploading, and boom, it's done. So we're going to exit. All right. I already have a dedicated server here on my desktop that we're going to be using. So we're going to go into here. And we're actually going to get rid of this one, and we're going to use this new one that we built, the race video. So we'll put our pack file into there. Yep, and everything's already set up. Like the workshop items is pointing to this, and of course, this here. Here's the actual workshop. This is my modding test zone. So if we refresh it, we'll see. There you go, updated just a minute ago. We updated our the pack file, the mod that we have shared, so that we can do a full live test. And then, so we don't forget while we're here, since we just updated it, The best way to quickly force Steam and your local computer to get those updates so we can test it as a client, we can just exit Steam and we'll restart it. And that will actually instantly pull that update. So I'm going to open up my laptop here on my left. I'm going to do the same on it as well. Let's load Steam again. So if you go to downloads, we can see it just downloaded a workshop content update, today at just a minute, or actually just right now. So, yep, it grabbed the latest version that we just uploaded. Doing that on my laptop as well. Yeah, so I think both got it. I'm going to double check it to make sure. Yep, so it got it too. All right. So let's go back to these server settings. So I was just showing you that when setting up this dedicated server, we're just using this is the workshop ID. So we just made that folder and then we also have set it here in this folder, so that this is what communicates to the clients which mods they need to download off the workshop. So, and then this just gives it to the server to use automatically, so it doesn't have to download it. All right, so let's that's just getting the server set up to run that mod, this new mod that we just built here. And we'll also go check under saved config Windows server. We'll check our dedicated server INI. We'll just leave this. Of course, it's going to be, I think, let's see actually. Yeah, in this case, it's still just called game mode race. So that's fine. So we can just leave that as the map name. And we should be good to go. And then everything else will stay the same. So let's see. Yep. So we'll go ahead and start up a dedicated server. And so this is just a bat file. It's just actually running this off of my desktop. It's just running this with a dash log behind it so that it opens up this window for us. Then we'll make sure the server is running in Steam. So we'll go here, view servers, and there it is, Trilogy Dedicated Server. It's game mode race. It's hosting that new mod we just created. All right. So now I will go ahead and load my custom built version of Trilogy here. Usually you would load this yourself just through your library. Right here, you would just hit play. But in this case, I haven't uploaded this yet, so I'm just using this custom built version here locally. So I'll load up, I'm going to load up Trilogy basically here. And I'm going to load it up on my other computer as well. And this computer already got the latest since we restarted Steam, so I should just be able to hit find. There's a server. I'm going to do it on my other computer as well. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to join the server. And now the match will have started. It's going to wait 3 seconds. And then boom, now we see the countdown starting right in the middle. And I'm trying to move and I can't move yet. And 0. And boom, now I can look around and move. So the race has started. So now I'm going to connect with the other player as well. So we should see him spawn in here in a second. So I just hit join on the other computer and boom, there he is. He's in. He can already move around, see, because the match already started, right? So we handled that situation. And that's why we handled that, is so that any guy that comes in late can move right away. He's not frozen. So yeah, so far so good. So I guess the first thing we'll try is I'm just gonna run through the finish line You can't see it because we haven't but it's definitely going to be there. So I'm just going to run through it, and it didn't work. Oh yeah, it did. Interesting. So it actually restarted, but for some reason I am not seeing the text. All right. Let's go see why. Actually, you know what? We'll go ahead and test the other stuff as well. So we'll join up again. Yeah, the match already started. So it looks like the finish line worked. We just didn't see the text. We'll go try to troubleshoot that in a second, see why. But the other thing I want to test is, so if I just kill myself, Control K, just to make sure that, yeah, so I respawn and I can move right away. I'm going to fall off of this. And boom, now I'm in a spectator camera. So that worked. And so here we go. I'm in spectator mode. And I can't really do anything from here. And what I'll do is I'll just run off with this guy. And then he'll fall off. He'll enter spectator. And of course, it should restart now, even though I'm not seeing anything on the screen. Okay, so apparently that didn't work as well. I mean, the other guy became a spectator, but it didn't restart. So let's exit. Hopefully we can figure out where I went wrong. All right, we'll close this down. So let's see. So we know that we know the add to viewport was working because we saw the countdown, so that works. So let's see what's going on. And we know this finished the game. So what happened? I think I know what this is. So the problem, I think, yes. So you remember, this is supposed to be game state race. This was actually pointing to the other mod folder. So let's see. Yes, and that'll actually fix the problem on the other thing as well. So sorry about that, guys. Let's just redo this. So dp game state race video, this one. Yeah, it's the downside to having these names. Like you won't have this problem yourself, obviously, because you won't have like multiple files that are named the same. Yeah, we got to like redo this as well. So game state race video. Yeah, gotta create a new variable. We have to actually get rid of this. So game state reference. So we're gonna want to destroy that. And then we're gonna want to put this in there. And we're gonna want to get rid of this one. And then we're gonna rename this. Let's compile it. Game state reference. So let's see. So game state reference. So we'll multicast winner on that. Delete this one. So what's going to happen is this is actually going to be using the proper one, like in our mod kit. The other one was like literally pointing to like a different, my test mod, this one over here when I was like building it. So yeah, horrible. Yep. And then we already have the winner text. Compile that. I think that's the only place we used game state reference in here. We can check that just by like right clicking it, do find references, and yeah, so we're just using it once here. So that should work now. And then of course, the other thing that was broken was the death pit, but it's the same thing basically. So we just, or actually, no, oh yeah, it is. So, I don't know actually. Let's see. I mean, it's definitely seems to be related. Ah, it's game mode, yeah, race video. Okay. So, very confusing. Yeah, so we did it correct. We had the game state race video there, so that was right. And then, not that, it's actually just our death pit. So, this game mode, this one, we need to use this instead. So same thing, so delete this, delete that. Again, I'm just having to make sure that this is like pointing into my mod folder because I have all these other ones up here that are like basically named almost the same. So that's why it's so confusing. In your case, you'll just have underscore race and it'll be fine. So let's create a new variable here. And this is going to be, get rid of that there. I'll have to do all these. We'll see if we can just reconnect them. So we'll pull these variables off of this one that's in our actual mod kit. Yeah. Grab this off of there. We should just be able to call this game mode reference. Oh, I'm sorry, I haven't deleted this one yet. That's why. There we go. All right, so now we should have everything pointing into our actual the proper mod folder here. So we're referencing all this stuff in here. So I think let's maybe just double check to make sure. Yeah, let's just give it a shot and see. It'll probably work, hopefully. And we'll go to package, package a new race video to our desktop. we'll go ahead and upload that again. Right. We'll we'll update our dedicated server. Yep. And then we'll restart Steam, so we get the update on both computers. It would get the update automatically if we waited like 5 or 10 minutes, but since we want to do it quickly, that's a way to do it quickly, just to get it to force update. To restart Steam. So just got another update to 1150. That's good. I'm just restarting Steam on my other computer. Okay, it just restarted. It just got the update as well, so that's good. All right, let's start a new dedicated server with the updated mod. Let's make sure the server is listing up on Steam. There it is. Then we'll try this again. Hopefully everything works. So we'll connect with the first guy. So we're going to find the server. And we're going to join it. And so we should see, yep, I can't move for 3 seconds. And the countdown, I still can't move. And then countdown ends, and boom, I can move and have ability to do everything. So we're going to connect onto the other computer. So we'll see him come in here. The other computer joins. Of course, he can move right away because the match is already fully started. And then let's hope this works. So I'm going to try to win the race by running through the goal line. And boom, it worked. Yay. So Kabakazi wins. That's his computer. And it also showed it on the other screen as well. So everybody got it. Game restarts. And now both guys are stuck and they can't move until the countdown. And then boom, this guy. So he's going to run in. He wins, and now you can see Kevin wins because that's the other computer. So, and of course it's going to wait 5 seconds, and it's going to restart, and then it's going to do the countdown again, and we both can't move, and then boom, race moves. So let's try the thing. So I'm gonna jump off and fall into the death pit, and boom, we enter spectator mode. It's just a spectator camera, and you can kind of like move around with it. It also works in VR as well. And then we'll have this guy run off, and he falls off and enters the death pit, and boom, there you go, no winner. So it should restart, hopefully. 5 seconds, boom, it restarts. And so there you go. We have all the functionality for a full brand new custom race mode. I know this was a lot, and it got confusing with the the classes like pointing into different mods, but you guys really shouldn't run into that. So I apologize for those issues, but yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the video otherwise, and good luck on making your own really super custom racing game modes.